Hi, everybody. This is Lindsay. This is Linda's Investing, and I have Violeta with me for a weekly live. It's scheduled for you guys. This is just a space where we come to talk about real estate news, real estate updates, what's going on in our lives, and just anything that comes to mind, honestly. Hi, Violeta. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm really liking to do these like weekly lives and just kind of talk about real estate. No real planned topic. It's just whatever comes to mind, and if anybody has questions or whatever, we could share. We just finished recording like two podcast episodes, so if you're not following our real estate Jefas podcast. We just released our first episode. We were talking about horror stories of what happened to our rental properties. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go listen to the episode or watch it on YouTube. Real Estate Jefas on YouTube channel. So yeah,
Yeah, there's a sneak peek. There's a couple walkthroughs that we went over. So if you want to head out to YouTube and see what we actually deal with on a
yeah.
day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we were just like a little sneak peek of what we talked about this episode. We were talking about like the walkthroughs and kind of lessons learned, and we showed two walkthroughs that we went through that were a little shady. But yeah, stay tuned for that episode to come out.
Yes. So this week, what's on our minds, actually, Violet and I's, is the government shutdown and
Yeah,
how that is going to affect us. Because if you've been listening to us, or we invest out of state, and we do have housing available for Section 8. So we have Section 8 tenants, which, if you don't know, somebody that's below poverty line can apply to a house vouching program. It could be federally funded, it can be state funded, but if you're limited on your income, you most likely are able to get, into a house or an apartment with a Section 8 voucher. So we do have a couple of those tenants, and what we notice by exchanging stories is that for example, I have two Section 8 vouchers that have not been paid so far, and it's October 4th, and we don't know how long the shutdown of the government is going to be, but that's something that I have to watch out for now, knowing with the presidency, what's going on, like the budget, what's going on. So this is a challenge that I did not foresee. I think the last time the government shut down was like 8 years ago or
mhm.
14 years ago. I'm not 100% sure. But the last time it did, it went over 31 days. So I may have to cover the mortgages for those two houses that I'm talking about. And so that's something that I'm going to be dealing with.
Yeah, and it's something that we kind of talked about it in episode our first episode on the podcast of how this is something as a real estate investor you have to kind of plan for. You're not necessarily planning for the government shutdown or anything like that, but you're planning for the potential of you having to cover that mortgage for uh, that month or whatever, because you don't know what may happen. As we could see, now we have this government shutdown that wasn't, we weren't planning for. But now, especially a lot of people invest um, in properties that they put Section 8 housing. Uh, and you get used to it's a paycheck that comes pretty on point every time. So now that you have to kind of be like, oh wow, now my tenants might not be getting their housing, and not only just thinking about oh, okay, now I got to cover your tenants are probably stressing out as well, that worrying that if we're going to kick them out or whatever, evict them, right, because they're not making payments. So I guess what's your thoughts on that, how you're going to navigate that right now?
First of all, I'm very happy that I underwrite for reserves in every single property. So If you follow us, that when you're structuring a deal, you always have to account for the fact that one of those possibilities will be something that you have to account for repairs or account for capital expenditures, like big expenses going wrong, like a roof, like a water heater, like a furnace, right? But
Mhm.
I also, you have to account for vacancy. And so I put away 5% of my cash flow into a bucket called vacancy. So even though the tenant, like the apartment or house is not vacant, this is something that I will use my reserves for. So it's
Mhm.
really important that when you're writing a deal that you like have that money set aside. And I think that's one of the things that I people get into the mistake of cash flow. They count cash flow and they don't even calculate how much money you need to put away into savings just because of a rainy day or oops, like now, which doesn't happen like every year, right? Like I said,
Right.
it's been like 8 years since the last one. So that's something that will cover you for the time being. And I also have in mind that when the government opens up back up, I'm gonna receive back payments
Mhm.
from the Section 8 vouchers. So I also have that in mind. So it's not like money is lost, but it's definitely something that is affecting my cash flow this month.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely. I'm glad you brought up the point of like, that's a mistake that a lot of new real estate investors do, because I definitely did that. I lucked out because I had such good cash flow with my first rental property, my first house. But that was because I had lived in it. So then, by the time I actually made it into rental property, it was already on like almost year 5, and all this stuff. And I had already done like some of the fixes and stuff like that. But when I decided to rent that house out, I didn't think anything of, oh, let me set money aside for maintenance or repairs or anything, or vacancies or anything like that. I was just like, I'm just renting it out. And same thing with my second. I left, and I bought another house that I wanted to make into a rental property. I didn't take into account that as well. I think the only thing I did account for was property manager, the 10%. That's what they were charging me. Uh, but I didn't know anything about that. So then when, of course, something always is going, like maintenance is going to happen, or turnover. And actually at that time was COVID, so you had people that lost their jobs because, or they, you know, couldn't go to work. So they had less income and stuff like that. So that was a whole other thing that I had to um, learn, because I didn't have like the funds at that time, like saved up and everything. Luckily, because I had my 9 to 5 job, I was able to cover it, that surprise and stuff. A whole other mortgage, which luckily was not that high. I think it was like, $800, which, at that time I didn't have a car payment or anything. So it was something that I was able to, but like I definitely put myself at risk not having like an emergency fund, which is something that you need to have as an investor. But yeah, one of the things is I didn't account that I should, save up like 5% for this, or account that I might have to evict someone or pay out of pocket, because it's gonna come up.
Yeah. And then that's why, like, w- when the beginning you're winging it and then you're like, don't know exactly what to do, like, real estate will teach you. It will humble you very quickly because things are going to come up and then you're going to have to account for that. And then it's better to have something already saved for yourself. But you may feel discouraged when these things come up, but do not just think about like monthly cash flow as like the saving grace. It's also like appreciation that you're having into the property and then long term wealth. Like all of the real estate investors that I know, they never regret buying that property and holding it off for the long time.
Hmm.
So investors I talk to, they always regret selling certain properties because if they hold on to it, they would have been able to tap into more of the appreciation that I've. But given saying that, also there's times in which you would be in the place of selling. So
Hmm.
it doesn't really affect. It's like it's going to be evolving. And I think I remember somebody asking me about how did your buy box has evolved, and it's changed over the years significantly. And you as an investor, the more you learn, the more you're going to change your the whole attitude towards investing. Like I know Violeta was talking about earlier, how she's a mom now, and then everything she has her daughter in her mind, and like she's trying to invest strategically more so than risky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I first started investing in real estate, I was like single, no kids or anything. I just had to worry about myself and my dog. And so I took on a lot more risk, especially since I had my 9 to 5, and I was just like, whatever. And then again, I was just winging it, not accounting for anything. But now I have to not be as risky because now I have a family. I don't have that stable 9 to 5 job anymore. So luckily, I have an e fund right now, which has saved me because, as on our first episode, we talk about some of the stuff that I had to deal with recently that popped up, and luckily, the e fund saved me. Um, but again, I didn't have that the first time, and it causes you to make um I don't like to say like a bad decision, but not like now that I have more experience and things like that, and um know more, uh I would not have maybe sold that first house, because it was such a good rental property and everything like that. But at the time, because I didn't have an e-fund or anything, calculate or account for maintenance or anything like that, when that stuff with COVID happened, and like he was missing payments, and like over time it started stressing me out. And then by the time that he ended up leaving, um, because he didn't even want to, at that time there was the program that he could apply to make up that, there was help, right? But he didn't want to fill out the paperwork or anything like that. uh, I even tried to fill out the paperwork, so I was like, all right, I try to work with you. So unfortunately I have to let you go. And he was going through some life stuff himself, so I don't, like, I'm not mad at him or whatever. I understand, but at the same time it's like, all right, I got to get somebody in here as well that's gonna actually um, pay the rent. And when he left, like, there was a lot of repairs. It was like it ended up being about 7,000, because the debt got, I first of all, the junk removal was like a lot. Like the whole house, I needed to take out stuff, painting, and all. Like it just added. And because I was such a new investor, like I allowed myself to just focus on that and kind of like freak out and everything. So I was like, you know what? Like I'm just done. I'm gonna sell the house, because at that time that's when the big old, like, the houses were just flying off the shelf. So like I
Mhm.
didn't even finish the repairs. I was like, you know what? Yeah. And then, which is a story for another time, the realtor and the property manager, like, I, you know, was so much drama. I just wanted to like be done with, because I had already fired my property manager, and then I went to a different property manager, and she had a clause there that if I had to sell the house, she gets first dibs. So then I couldn't fire her, and I had to be stuck with her, and she was a bad realtor as well. So, but it worked out in the end because of the market at that time. It was, burning hot, where everything was flying off the shelves. I was able to just sell that house, like, with, just a few repairs that I think I only painted it and a few things. Um, and it sold like that, and I still made money, which I was able to use to then switch my strategy to multi-family properties, which that's the reason I had switched to it, because I didn't like that I had to rely on just that tenant. And then, and now it's kind of like spread out between the units. But yeah, in hindsight, I would have like sucked it up and kept that property, because it did have equity and all that stuff. So things you
Yeah.
learn along the way.
Yeah, and for myself too, like the first 3 years I was very slow, and then the last year I just ranked up for. And then so I had so many projects going on at the same time there. I'm still finishing up like a burr right now,
Hmm.
and I was looking, like I was showing Violeta earlier, a deal that I looked into that looks good, but I can't really stretch myself more thin to acquire that deal because of money, right? Like everything that I'm doing is first, so I'm like deploying a lot of cash out, and
Hmm.
then so I feel like I'm bleeding and bleeding and bleeding money. That I want a rest barrier. I want
Yeah.
somebody. I want everything to slow down so I can build up all of the reserves back, and I can be comfortable and like moving on to a next deal. So my way of thinking about buying a house too has evolved from like I want rent already. No, I want something that like I want to build equity into and force appreciation into to like now I don't want to do any work. Now I want to like cosmetically like just like
Yeah.
put lipstick on and then put it on the market. And then so you'll see our progress and the things that we learn along the side, and we're like, okay, well, maybe in the future I'll go back to like heavy work again. But it definitely changes all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing is that you're evolving. Like you're gonna evolve throughout. Even me, like I started with that first property, and now I'm into multi-families. But now I'm like, well, I'm kind of in that phase where I want to scale, like, but I have to, again, because I have a family, I have to kind of strategize on how fast to scale and how I'm going to do that. And so that's where I'm at right now in my real estate investing journey is like planning. Okay, so now I really want to scale, but also not be too like put myself too much like at risk.
mhm.
So, but it evolves. Like you start off with one, started off with my single family homes to multifamily, and now I want to challenge myself and be like Lynn and go do a rehab, but I gotta be a little bit more strict, like careful on what I am going to get because I
Mhm.
can't take as much risk instead of.
Mhm. Yeah. And don't let that scare you. Like we're not saying like let's go real estate full time and then quit your job and just concentrate on this. Like no, we are when we started we bought W-2 and we were working a regular 9 to 5 and trying to build wealth little by little, and then even a down payment like a 20% down payment was from our savings. Like we didn't do anything crazy, we didn't do anything like 0% down and we just got private money or hard money and then purchased this house and rehab it and flipped it and we got the money out. Like no, that's not our story. And this is just for people that like are there trying to just manage your wealth, like investing. You invest in the real estate, in real estate or the stock market. This is what also can happen for you.
Yeah, and that's why we're like teaming up and doing the real estate have us podcast and YouTube channel, um, because we do want to make real estate investing less scary and more like relatable, because it's a lot of once you get into this space, it's mostly a lot of us like are just regular people with families with W-2s or whatever, just trying to build wealth or find a way to retire early through cash flow or whatever it may be, their strategy or financial goal is. And yeah, and just share our stories. And we have lots of other Latinas that are out here in real estate, whether they're investors, realtors, lenders. Like we're out here. It's just we get kind of drowned out with everything else. We get lost in the sauce. So that's why we want to, you know, empower more Latina voices and share our stories too.
Yes. So if you keep following us, you'll be able to talk to us, comment on our videos, and even if you want to come on the podcast, that's totally a possibility. And maybe trial us and ask us questions, and then see what's up. as well.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see each other next week on our next live.
Yeah. Awesome. Bye.
Bye.